think everyone here is very well aware of what that is. Well, here it is. Finally completed and actually on a pole this time. And of course, this is a Federal Sign and Signal 500 SHTT, early 50s model. And this is mounted on the very same type of towers that they would have been mounted to in Los Angeles. This is all based off of the Los Angeles system. All the details are 3D printed, including the grate right here, which actually does come out. Is including the control box, which is printed on a MSLA printer. I'll get more into that in a video coming up as to the changes that have been done. The insulators and power connections are all printed on my old printer, but the foot pegs are printed on the MSLA printer again, including the standoffs for where you'd have to insert your own foot pegs. But it's all here. Of course, this is unweathered and it's unpainted. But when this is complete, this is going to be based off of specifically Siren 133 in Los Angeles. I'll go ahead and I'll put a picture right here. Well, several pictures, so you actually can see what siren this is. And this siren this is going to be based off of in terms of the paint scheme and weathering and everything else. This siren is actually the very first siren I ever climbed back when I was like 14. It was the first one I ever climbed, I ever got up to get to. It was actually, I was lucky that it was also the first, it was one of the only ones that actually, the control cabinet was actually open in it. So I could get a peek inside. I'll post some pictures right here of what the inside of the control cabinets look like. I know this is something that most people I don't think have actually seen, but in the very, very top you can see that we have the breaker. That's the main power breaker that's actually cutting power coming from the utility pole. And then down below that we have the actual contactor that does all the actual switching for the system. And then in the lower left hand corner of this control cabinet is where this sits. This is the telephone relay that is used for actually closing the contactor, the main contactor, to actually activate the siren. And of course there's a little test button that sits right over here on the side. Some more interesting stuff about this siren is the service tag, which I have got a picture of right here. This is going over the service interval that this siren had gone through, when it was taken, when it was serviced, how frequently, and even back to when it was actually installed. And of course it has the siren number, which is 133, which is accurate on the Wire Chief Los Angeles Siren Map website, as the siren itself does have the proper data for it inside. These of course are pictures that were taken quite a long time ago now, and a lot has changed the siren, but I thought it'd be interesting for some people to actually see kind of some of the progress. Well, I certainly hope you guys like that POV video. Kind of as an idea of what these maybe would have looked like from the point of view of someone who was possibly working on them. Oh, I also got to make sure I reverse the microphone. 1 second. There we go. That probably sounds far better now. But that essentially is it. So my idea with this kind of is I don't really think the pole is going to be a very, very easy thing to ship if someone were to request one. Mainly because it is in so many other, it's in so many pieces, and they all have to be individually glued together. Like these insulators have to be actually glued to this mount. Every little leg has to be individually spaced out and then glued onto the pole itself, as well as the actual mounts for the removable pegs. It's just kind of a headache. So I really don't know if I'm gonna sell them that way, unless you guys in the community are really willing to put it together yourself. I could, of course, include all the parts and then, you know, give like a little tube of super glue and then have you guys kind of assemble it yourself with instructions, of course. But that's really about the only idea I have in terms of how that's going to work. Just because it's just too big of a hassle for me to sell it that way. But the benefits of this design that I have for this pole is that it is made of several sections, so it can be actually removed before being glued together and like shrunken down. It's actually just sitting in this mounting base down here. So this whole thing just kind of slides in there. But also, the siren itself can actually be removed, because if you have other sirens that are part of the Los Angeles series, so for example, one of these, here we go with another model, that can easily be swapped in place, and now the model is completely changed. So you basically could have just one pole for multiple models, which I think is really, really convenient. And yes, if you were able to peek up into that chopper, you probably can't because the camera really wants to focus on the damn clouds. But that's actually a 5T. I'll explain why it's a 5T in just a second. But yeah, here's the explanation as to why this is a 5T. But there's the siren itself. You can see, say, dual tone stator. And if you take the eye bolt off, just like on the real one, take the eye bolt off and the whole top pops off. It's a 5T just because of that little intake tube. That's really seriously the only thing that makes it a 5T. If it didn't have that intake tube and it had just the support brace, then it would just be a 7T. But really, that intake tube is really what makes the difference at this scale, in terms of like accuracy and all. Of course, the motors would be different sizes on the real ones, but just of course the 7Ts didn't have this little intake tube. But that's another thing that's coming down the pipeline, because like I said, when I initially started selling these, or started picking up production of these again, I really did want to make sure I had the Los Angeles system covered, because the Los Angeles system is my favorite system, of course, the legacy system. But I'll let you listen to what this sounds like. It's not really that loud, because of course the rotor and stator is even smaller than that of the 500. So yeah, of course, not really that loud, but cute nonetheless, and of course it looks good on the pole. But yeah, and this casing is of course actually made of several pieces. So unlike my first generation of the Model 7s that are basically, they don't have the ability to be locked down and secured. They're pretty much at the mercy of just the gravity holding the casings on, the housings. But these actually do have a screw that goes all the way through. And of course this will be given, this little stud will be given as a option if you want to glue it on the bottom, so you can actually have it mount onto a pole like this. But yeah. And of course there is the Model 5T mount on the pole, which is, I understand, not accurate because all the sirens and all of the birdhouse quote sirens that were in Los Angeles were they were all 7s, including the flat ones. Those were also 7s. They weren't Model 3s. But that's more in the minutia. If people want me to, I could also make a video on those explaining the misconception about the flattened Model 7s, the Mach 7s to be more accurate. But let me go ahead and set this off and see what it sounds like. It's not very loud at all, of course, it's because it's just so small. The 500 itself is actually quite audible. I have to keep switching mics here. It's kind of annoying. Yeah, and that's about it. It makes the noise, but it's not very loud. I mean, there's a queue in the background now because I'm up on Main Street. Yeah. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you guys get as much of enjoyment out of these little projects as I do. That kind of this also kind of gives you an idea of how tall the pole actually is. But I'm gonna try to wrap this video up now. My battery is dying, and but stay tuned, because in the future I will be doing a video, kind of the process of what I go through in terms of making these sirens and everything that kind of goes into it, as well as kind of a tour of my little factory, if you want to call it that. I don't really call it a factory. I like to call my little room the lab, because it's kind of, I mean, you'll see in the video coming up. But I'll also kind of probably later on do a video explaining the legacy system, the Los Angeles system, more colloquially known, and I'll kind of go through some of the interesting things about it, some of the nomenclature, some of the stuff that I have on hand, some of the files I have that kind of go over more of the interesting things, such as the what was for a long time the mystery of the federal code / Sirodrones, that whole debate that went on for a great many years, which I'm hoping has finally been kind of squashed. I've got some pictures that actually have proof from one of the ones I climbed that this is of what they actually are, and I think you guys might get a kick out of that. And I also have an inside view, a very detailed inside view of the actual control cabinet and what was actually inside of them to operate these sirens. So there's a lot to go through, but I hope to see you in the next video, and I don't know, I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. It's really fascinating to know the history about these systems, especially the ones that are really kind of near and dear to us. The Los Angeles one being really special to me. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment, rate, and subscribe. You guys really don't have to do any of that stuff, but it helps out a lot, and it lets me know your feedback. And I don't know, I like hearing from you guys.